The great paradox of life. The more we cling, the more we suffer. We have been taught since childhood to hold on. Hold on to people, to possessions, to ambitions, to identities carved out of sheer will. And yet we find ourselves weighed down, exhausted, endlessly chasing illusions that slip through our fingers like water. But what if the true power lies not in holding on, but in letting go? What if the very freedom we seek is not found in grasping, but in releasing? Look at the river. It does not cling to the rocks, it flows. Look at the wind. It does not beg the trees to stay still, it moves. Everything in nature follows this simple wisdom. Nothing is fixed, nothing is stagnant, everything is in motion. And yet, we, the so-called intelligent species, resist. We resist change, we resist loss, we resist uncertainty. And in this resistance, we create suffering. Imagine you're holding a rope tied to a wild horse. The harder you pull, the more violently it thrashes, dragging you through the dirt. You scream, you struggle, you plead for it to stop, but it will not. The more you resist, the more pain you endure. Now imagine something radical. You let go of the rope. In an instant, the struggle vanishes. The horse runs free, and so do you. Life is that wild horse. It moves unpredictably, it changes directions, it runs faster than our control can keep up with. And yet we hold on. We hold on to old wounds, to relationships that have run their course, to identities we have outgrown. But ask yourself, who are you without all that baggage? What remains when you surrender the illusion of control? The greatest power in this universe is not force. It is flow. The ability to trust, to surrender, to dance with the uncertainty of existence instead of fighting against it. The tree does not resist the wind. It bends, it sways, it moves with it. The ocean does not fight the waves. It is the waves. And you, yes, you, are not separate from this great cosmic rhythm. Letting go is not weakness. It is the ultimate act of courage. It is the realization that you were never truly in control to begin with, that life has always been happening not to you, but through you. It is the deep trust that what is meant for you will stay, and what is not will drift away like leaves on the river. So, release the grip, breathe, allow life to unfold without the desperate need to shape it to your will. And in that surrender, you will discover something astonishing. You were never the rope, never the struggle, never the pain. You were, and always will be, the open sky, boundless, infinite. And yet we resist. We clutch at things, convinced that if we just hold on a little tighter, life will finally bend to our will. But what does this gripping truly bring us? Anxiety, exhaustion, fear of loss. We spend our days wrestling with change, fearing that if we let go, we will fall into some great abyss. But here's the truth. There is no abyss. There is only life, moving as it always has, and our suffering comes not from change itself, but from our refusal to flow with it. Think of how much energy is wasted in clinging. We hold on to relationships that have long since faded, afraid to face the silence they leave behind. We dwell on past mistakes, as if replaying them will somehow undo them. We grasp onto identities, titles, achievements, the version of ourselves that once was, desperate to convince the world and ourselves that we are still the same. But everything in life is impermanent. The seasons change, the tides shift, even the stars are born, only to one day fade. And so we must ask ourselves, if the entire universe exists in a state of constant transformation, why should we be any different? Why should we suffer by resisting the very nature of existence? The tighter we cling, the more we deny ourselves the beauty of the present moment. We are so busy grasping at what was, or what we wish could be, that we miss the miracle of what is. Letting go is not about losing, it is about making space. When we release the weight of our attachments, we create room for something new, new experiences, new love, new understanding. And in that space, something incredible happens. We find peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from temporary control, but the deep, unwavering peace that comes from surrender. The kind of peace that says, I do not need to hold on because I trust the flow of life itself. And if we need a reminder of this truth, we need only look to nature. The river does not resist its course. It moves effortlessly, carving through mountains not with force, but with patience. The trees do not cling to their leaves in autumn. They release them to the wind, knowing that spring will bring new growth. The waves do not fight the shore. They rise and fall in a rhythm as old as time itself. Nature shows us again and again that change is not something to be feared. It is something to be embraced. Yet we stand apart, believing ourselves to be separate from this great cosmic dance. We insist on certainty, on permanence, on control, while the very essence of life is movement. But are we not too part of nature? Are we not made of the same elements, moved by the same unseen forces? Then why do we resist what the river, the tree, and the wind have always understood? Imagine a tree that refuses to shed its leaves, terrified of being bare in the winter cold. What happens? It withers, it weakens, it suffers under the weight of what no longer serves it. And yet, when it surrenders, when it lets go, it does not die. It is renewed. In time, fresh buds emerge, and it stands tall once more. So, too, must we learn to release. Let go of what has run its course, of the fears that keep us stagnant, of the illusion that we must always be in control. Just as the river does not fear where it flows, we must trust that life will carry us exactly where we are meant to be. The universe has never clung to anything, and still it thrives. And in the moment we align ourselves with that truth, we too begin to truly live. Yet, despite all the wisdom nature offers, we still hesitate. We still hold on, believing that if we let go, we will somehow lose ourselves. But ask yourself, what are you really holding on to, and at what cost? Imagine gripping a rope tied to a wild horse. At first, you believe you have control, that your grip is keeping you safe, that if you just pull a little harder, you can tame the chaos. But the more you pull, the more resistance you create. The horse fights back, thrashing, dragging you through the dirt, burning your hands, exhausting your spirit. You plead, you struggle, you scream at the injustice of it all. But no matter how hard you try, the horse does not stop. It was never yours to control. And then something profound happens. You let go. In that instant, the struggle ceases. The pain, the exhaustion, the endless battle, all vanish. The horse runs free, but so do you. You realize that the suffering was never in the situation itself, but in your refusal to release it. Life is that wild horse. We cling to relationships that have run their course, to dreams that no longer inspire us, to wounds that have long since healed, afraid that if we loosen our grip, we will be left with nothing. But the truth is, what is truly meant for us will never require a desperate grasp. What is real, what is true, what is aligned with our deepest nature, these things flow effortlessly into our lives, and when the time comes, they flow effortlessly out. So why do we struggle? Why do we fear the very act that will set us free? Because we mistake letting go for failure. We believe that surrender means defeat, but letting go is not giving up. It is choosing peace over struggle, trust over fear, freedom over attachment. It is recognizing that we do not need to grip life so tightly that we were never meant to. And when we finally release, when we unclench our fists and open our hands, we do not fall into emptiness. We fall into freedom. And here is the most liberating truth of all. You were never truly in control to begin with. The illusion of control is what binds us, what keeps us entangled in fear and resistance. We build our lives on careful plans, on expectations, on the belief that if we just manage every detail, we can force life to conform to our will. But look closely. Has life ever followed your plans exactly? Has it ever bent perfectly to your desires? Or has it always moved in its own unpredictable, untamed way, despite all your efforts to command it? We fear letting go because we fear the unknown. We believe that if we stop gripping so tightly, everything will fall apart. But the paradox is this: life flows far more effortlessly when we stop trying to control it. The river does not need to know where it is going. It simply moves, and in doing so, it carves valleys, nourishes lands, and reaches the vastness of the ocean. Birds do not need a map to migrate. They trust the invisible pull of nature, and it never leads them astray. Yet we hesitate, we doubt, We demand certainty before we take a step. But certainty is an illusion, a prison built by the mind to give us the false comfort of control. In reality, life has always been uncertain, always shifting, always unfolding in ways beyond our comprehension. And that is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. When we release the need to control, something incredible happens. We begin to trust. We move with life instead of against it. We surrender not in weakness, but in the deep, unwavering knowing that the same force that moves the stars, that turns the tides, that orchestrates the rhythm of existence, it moves us too. And in that surrender, we find peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from everything going our way, but the profound, unshakable peace that comes from knowing we never needed to force anything at all. Life was always carrying us, and it always will. And perhaps the greatest misunderstanding of all is the belief that letting go is an act of weakness. We are taught to fight, to push forward, to hold on no matter what. We admire those who endure, who struggle, who refuse to surrender. But is true strength found in resistance or in the courage to release? Look at the sky. The clouds come and go, shifting effortlessly, never trying to cling to one form. The ocean rises and falls, allowing the waves to crash and recede without resistance. This is not weakness. This is power. The power of something so vast, so unshaken, that it has no need to force or control. It simply allows. Yet we've been conditioned to believe that surrender means defeat, that if we stop fighting, we lose. But the reality is quite the opposite. True strength is not found in the desperate clenching of fists, but in the openness of palms. It takes immense courage to trust life enough to stop gripping, to stop forcing, to stop demanding that it fit into our expectations. Think of a clenched fist, tight, rigid, full of tension. Now think of an open hand, relaxed, receptive, free. Which one is truly stronger? The one that exhausts itself in endless struggle, or the one that allows, that trusts, that flows? To let go is not to abandon, not to give up, not to walk away in defeat. It is to stand in the very heart of uncertainty and say, I trust. It is to release, not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to know that we do not need to control everything. We do not need to force love or success or happiness. What is meant for us will find us, and what is not meant for us, no matter how tightly we hold on, will slip away. So in that moment of choice, ask yourself, is it truly strength to struggle against the tide, or is it strength to become the tide itself? To flow, to trust, to surrender, knowing that in letting go, you are not losing, you are becoming limitless. And when we finally find the strength to let go, something extraordinary happens. We begin to trust, not just in life, but in ourselves, in the unseen forces that guide us, in the natural rhythm that has always been there, waiting for us to stop resisting. We realize that we were never meant to control everything, that our desperate grip was never what kept us safe. It was trust all along. Trust is not blind faith. It is not passivity or wishful thinking. It is the deep knowing that life has a wisdom far greater than our own. It is understanding that just as the sun rises without our command, just as the seasons shift without our effort, our lives too are unfolding exactly as they are meant to. Even in moments of uncertainty, even when the path is unclear, there is a flow to everything, a current beneath the surface, carrying us forward. And the more we trust it, the more effortlessly life moves. But trust requires surrender. It requires us to loosen our grip, to stop trying to force what is not meant for us, to allow things to come and go without fear. And that is terrifying, isn't it? Because we have been taught that security comes from control, that if we just try harder, hold on longer, plan more carefully, we can ensure the outcome we want. But life does not work that way. The river does not demand to know where it will end up. It flows, trusting the landscape to guide it. The birds do not fear the vastness of the sky. They spread their wings and let the wind carry them. And so must we. When we trust the flow of life, we stop stop fearing change. We stop grasping at things that are not ours to keep. We stop fighting against the natural unfolding of existence. We learn to rest in the knowing that what is meant for us will come and what is not will leave. And in that trust, we find something we have been searching for all along. Peace. Not the fragile peace that comes from things going our way, but the unshakable peace that comes from knowing we never needed to control anything to begin with. Life was always carrying us, even in the moments we thought we were lost. And when we surrender to that, we do not fall, we rise, we expand, we become one with the great unfolding of existence itself. And as we learn to trust, as we begin to release the illusion of control, we are faced with yet another truth. Who we thought we were is not who we truly are. For so long, we have clung to identities, to roles, to the stories we have told ourselves about who we must be. We say, this is who I am, this is what I do, this is what defines me. And yet, is that really true? Or is it just another thing we are afraid to let go of? Think of all the ways you have changed over the years. The dreams you once had that no longer excite you, the beliefs you once held that no longer make sense, the version of yourself you once worked so hard to build, only to realize it no longer fits. And yet, despite all this change, you are still here. You are still you, which means you were never just your titles, your achievements, your past, or even the identity you so fiercely protected. You are something much deeper, much freer, but we resist this change because we mistake it for loss. We fear that if we let go of who we once were, we will be left with nothing. But what if, in letting go, we are not losing ourselves, but finding something truer? What if the discomfort we feel is not emptiness, but space? Space to grow, space to evolve, space to become something greater than we ever imagined. A snake does not mourn the skin it sheds. A caterpillar does not grieve the cocoon it leaves behind. They do not fear the transformation, they embrace it, because they know that shedding the old is the only way to step into what they are meant to be. And so, ask yourself, who are you beneath all the labels, the expectations, the old versions of yourself that no longer serve you? What if you are not meant to stay the same, but to continuously unfold, to become, to evolve? What if your only true identity is the ever-changing, ever-expanding awareness that you are something far greater than anything you have clung to? Let go of who you once were. Let go of the need to define yourself so rigidly. Allow yourself the freedom to transform again and again, knowing that every time you do, you are not losing yourself, you are discovering yourself. And in that discovery, you will find something astonishing. You were never just one thing. You are never just one thing. You were always infinite. And when we finally let go, not just of control, not just of our past, but of the very idea that we must be anything at all, what remains? Freedom. A vast, limitless freedom that has always been there, waiting for us to see it. Because this is the great paradox. The more we hold on, the more we suffer. The more we try to define, to control, to force life into a shape that feels safe, the more we find ourselves trapped. But the moment we surrender, the moment we release our grip, we realize there was never anything to fear. There was never anything to lose. Look at the open sky. Does it try to hold on to the clouds? Look at the ocean. Does it cling to a single wave? No, because they understand something we have forgotten. Everything comes and everything goes. And nothing needs to be possessed to be appreciated. Life is not meant to be grasped, it is meant to be experienced. And so when we stop clinging, when we stop fearing the natural rhythm of existence, we step into something extraordinary, true freedom. Not just the freedom to move, to change, to evolve, but the freedom to simply be, to be here in this moment without needing to control it, to love without fear of loss, to create without fear of failure, to embrace life fully, knowing that its beauty comes not from permanence, but from the endless dance of appearing and disappearing, of holding and releasing, of becoming and unbecoming. The pretty common manner that worth and ignorance are not, this is the power of letting go, not as an act of loss, but as an act of liberation. When we let go, we do not fall into emptiness, we fall into life itself. We merge with the great unfolding of the universe, no longer separate, no longer afraid. And in that moment we realize we were never meant to hold on, we were meant to flow, to trust, to be as free as the wind, as open as the sky, as boundless as the ocean. And so the only question that remains is this: are you ready? Ready to release, to surrender, to step into the freedom that has been waiting for you all along? If so, then let go. Let go completely. And watch as life rushes in to meet you, not as something to control, but as something to dance with, something to trust, something to finally be free with it.